I stepped out of the house I once called my peaceful place, a sanctuary now lost to me. The old wooden door slammed shut with a heavy thud, its echo cutting through the still night. A dim yellow glow from inside spilled onto the dark road, stretching my lonely shadow before me. I paused, turning back to gaze at the house, once alive with memories, now a hollow shell of the past. No one stood at the threshold to wave goodbye. No words broke the silence. It was just me and the void. My heart sank, a leaden weight in my chest. My eyes stung red with unshed tears, and my breath trembled in the biting cold. Each step away felt like a wound, yet I had to go on. If you were misunderstood and cast out from your home, what would you do? Please comment below. I want to hear your story. The weeks after my mom's words cut deeper than I expected. You only ever think about yourself. They echoed in my head during every late shift at the café, every time I scrubbed a sticky table or counted my measly tips. I wasn't selfish. I was trying to hold everything together. But no matter how hard I worked, it felt like I was slipping further away from the family we used to be. My name's Harper, 22 years old, and I'm juggling college and a part-time gig at Brew and Bean, a little cafe with chipped mugs and a temperamental espresso machine. I don't live extravagantly. My wardrobe's mostly thrift store finds, and my meals are whatever's cheap or left over from work. I've always wanted to keep the weight off my family's shoulders. Growing up, we were tight-knit. Dad, with his stern rules and big heart, taught me discipline. Mom, soft-spoken and warm, made our house a home. But lately, those small arguments, over bills, over time, over me, have cracked that foundation. I come home late, my apron still smelling of coffee grounds, and tell them I'm pitching in. They don't buy it. They see a daughter dodging duty, not one fighting to stay afloat. That's when things started unraveling more. One night, I got a call from my boss, Linda, a wiry woman in her 50s who runs the cafe like it's her empire. Harper, we're short tomorrow. Can you pull a double? Her voice was clipped. No room for negotiation. I hesitated. My history midterm was in 2 days, and I hadn't cracked a book. But the rent was due, and Dad had been grumbling about the electric bill. Yeah, I'll be there, I said, my stomach sinking. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford anyway. The next day was a blur. I slung lattes and plastered on smiles from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., my feet screaming by the end. I met Jake during that shift, though, a new guy, barely 19, with messy hair and a nervous grin. He'd just started bussing tables, and I could tell he was drowning. Spilled coffee on a lady's lap my first hour, he admitted, scrubbing a tray beside me. I laughed, despite myself. Welcome to the chaos. He was green, but he had this earnestness that made me want to help him. Maybe because I saw myself in him, overwhelmed, underestimated, trying to prove something. When I finally dragged myself home, it was past 10. The house was dark except for the kitchen light. Mom was at the sink, her back to me, washing dishes with sharp, angry movements. Dad sat at the table, his glasses low on his nose, flipping through a stack of bills. Neither looked up. Late again, Dad muttered. Not a question. I dropped my bag by the door. I worked a double. Linda needed me. Mom turned, her eyes tired but hard. And what about us? You think we don't need you here? Her voice trembled, and I felt that familiar sting. I wanted to yell that I was doing this for them, that every dollar I made was one less worry for us. But I just stood there, silent, my throat tight. The truth was, I was falling behind everywhere. School was a mess. My grades were slipping because I couldn't study between shifts. At home, I was a ghost, too tired to talk, too broke to fix anything. And at work, I was barely keeping up. Jake, bless him, became my shadow those next few weeks. He'd fumble orders, and I'd cover for him, showing him how to steam milk or dodge Linda's wrath. But it cost me. One afternoon, I burned my hand on the espresso machine because I was distracted, teaching him the ropes. The blister throbbed for days, a quiet reminder of how thin I was stretched. Then there was Sarah, my roommate from college who'd pop into the cafe sometimes. She was everything I wasn't. Put together, confident, her tuition paid by a scholarship. She'd sit at the counter, sipping tea, chatting about her latest A-plus paper while I wiped down tables. "You should take a break, Harp," she'd say, all breezy. I'd force a smile. Breaks don't pay the bills. She meant well, but she didn't get it. Her life was a straight line. Mine was a tangle of detours. The real blow came a week later. I'd saved up $200, tips and overtime, to help with the rent. I left it on the kitchen counter with a note. For the house. Love. Harper. I thought it'd show them I wasn't selfish, but when I got home, the money was gone and Dad was furious. "You think this fixes anything?" he snapped. "We need you here, not your handouts." Mom just shook her head, like I'd disappointed her again. I didn't know what to say. I'd tried, and it still wasn't enough. That night, I sat on my bed, staring at the peeling paint on my wall. Jake's clumsy kindness, Sarah's easy success, my parents' growing distance, it all pressed down on me. I was 22, chasing a degree I might not finish, working a job that barely paid, and losing the family I'd give anything to keep. I wasn't selfish. I was drowning. And the worst part? I didn't know how to swim back to shore. It was a weary evening when I returned home after a grueling shift at the cafe. My feet ached, my back was sore, and all I wanted was to collapse onto my bed and forget the world for a few hours. But as soon as I stepped through the front door, I knew something was terribly wrong. The house was unnaturally quiet, the kind of silence that makes your skin prickle with unease. I found my parents in the living room, sitting stiffly on the couch. Their faces were drawn, their eyes fixed on me with a mixture of anger and disappointment that made my heart sink. On the coffee table between them lay the family's savings book, open to a page that showed our account balance. Nearly zero. My stomach twisted into knots. This was bad. Really bad. "Harper," my father began, his voice low and trembling with barely contained fury. "Explain this." I stared at the savings book, then back at my parents, my mind racing to make sense of the situation. "I don't know, Dad. I haven't touched the savings." I swear my mother's eyes were already brimming with tears. "Don't lie to us, Harper," she said, her voice cracking. "You're the only one in this house who goes out all the time, who comes home late. You must have taken the money for yourself." Her words hit me like a slap. "Mom, I would never do that," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I work hard to earn my own money. I've never taken a cent from the family." But my father wasn't having it. He slammed his hand down on the table, making me flinch. "Enough. We've heard your excuses before. You think we don't notice how you're always out, always too busy for us. And now this?" I felt a surge of frustration. "I'm out because I'm working. I'm trying to help pay for my tuition, to take some of the burden off you. How can you accuse me of stealing?" "Because the evidence is right here," my mother cried, gesturing to the savings book. "The money's gone, and you're the only one who could have taken it." I shook my head, disbelief and hurt warring inside me. "That's not true. I didn't do this." My father stood up, his face red with anger. "Then who did, Harper?" "Tell me, who else could it be?" I didn't have an answer. I didn't know where the money had gone, but I knew it wasn't me. Desperate for some support, I turned to my younger brother Tommy, who was standing in the doorway, his eyes wide and frightened. "Tommy," I said, my voice pleading, "you know me. You know I wouldn't do something like this. Please, tell them." But Tommy just looked down at his feet, saying nothing. His silence was like a knife to my heart. My own brother, the one I'd always protected and cared for, didn't believe me. Dad noticed my gaze and shook his head. "Even Tommy knows the truth. You're not fooling anyone, Harper." I felt tears prickling at the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. "Fine," I said, my voice tight. "If that's what you think of me, then there's nothing I can say to change your minds." My mother started sobbing openly now, her shoulders shaking. "How could you do this to us, Harper? After everything we've sacrificed for you." Her words cut deep, but I forced myself to stay calm. "I didn't do it, Mom. But if you don't believe me, then maybe I don't belong here anymore." My father nodded grimly. "That's right. Until you can admit what you've done and make amends, you're not welcome in this house." The finality of his words hit me like a physical blow. I stood there for a moment, stunned, as the reality of the situation sank in. They were kicking me out. My own family, the people who were supposed to love and trust me unconditionally. With a heavy heart, I turned and walked to my room, grabbing a backpack and stuffing it with a few essentials: clothes, my laptop, some toiletries. My hands were shaking as I packed, my mind a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, and a growing sense of determination. As I slung the backpack over my shoulder and headed for the door, I paused to look back at my family one last time. My mother was still crying. My father stood with his arms crossed, his expression unyielding, and Tommy remained in the corner, avoiding my gaze. "I hope one day you'll realize I was telling the truth," I said quietly, then stepped out into the night, the door closing behind me with a soft click. The cool evening air hit my face, and I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I had no idea where I was going to go or what I was going to do, but I knew one thing for certain. I would prove my innocence, no matter what it took. The rain was a soft patter against the pavement, each drop a tiny echo in the stillness of the night. I pulled my jacket tighter around me, but it did little to ward off the chill that had settled deep into my bones. The streetlights flickered weakly, casting long, wavering shadows on the wet ground. I glanced back at the house, its windows dark and unwelcoming. It was hard to believe that just hours ago it had been my home. My backpack felt heavy on my shoulders, even though it held only a few essentials. I had grabbed what I could in the few minutes I had before leaving: a couple of changes of clothes, my diary, and a few toiletries. My sneakers squelched with each step, the soles worn thin from countless shifts at the café. I was tired, so tired, but I couldn't stop. Not yet. "I didn't do anything wrong," I whispered to myself, the words barely audible over the sound of the rain. But there was no one to hear me, no one to believe me. The accusation hung over me like a dark cloud, and the silence from my family was deafening. Tommy's averted gaze, Mom's tears, Dad's anger, they all swirled in my mind, a cacophony of pain and betrayal. I kept walking, each step taking me farther from the life I had known. The park came into view, its benches slick with rain. I chose one at random and sat down, the cold seeping through my jeans. I hugged my backpack to my chest, as if it could shield me from the world. Tears welled up, hot and insistent, mingling with the rain on my cheeks. Memories flooded back, laughter around the dinner table, movie nights with popcorn and blankets, the warmth of family. But those memories felt distant now, like they belonged to someone else. I was alone, truly alone, for the first time in my life. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut, and I let out a shaky breath. Where would I go? What would I do? The questions loomed large, but I had no answers. I thought of the cafe, of Linda and the other staff, but I couldn't burden them with my problems. Sarah, my roommate, was an option, but she was already struggling with her own issues. I didn't want to be a burden. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand, the rain making it a futile gesture. I needed to think, to plan, but my mind was a jumble of emotions. Anger at the injustice, sadness at the loss, fear of the unknown. They all fought for dominance, leaving me feeling drained and helpless. But deep down, beneath the turmoil, There was a spark of determination. I would prove my innocence. I would find out who had taken the money and clear my name. It was the only way to reclaim my life, to mend the rift with my family. It wouldn't be easy, but I had to try. I stood up, my resolve hardening. The rain was letting up, the clouds parting to reveal a sliver of moonlight. It felt like a sign, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. I adjusted my backpack and started walking again, my steps a little lighter, my heart a little less heavy. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay here. The park, the house, the life I had known, they were behind me now. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also possibility. I would face it head on, one step at a time. As I walked, I thought of Tommy, his silence still stinging. I hoped that one day he would understand, that he would see the truth. But for now, I had to focus on myself, on surviving and proving my innocence. The night stretched on, the rain a constant companion. But I kept moving, each step a testament to my resilience. I was Harper, and I would not be broken. 2 days had passed since I'd stormed out into the rain, my heart shattered and my backpack soaked. I was now crashing at my friend Sarah's place, her small apartment a warm haven compared to that cold, lonely night. She didn't pry much, just handed me a blanket and let me take over her couch. I'd been stuck in my head ever since, replaying the fight, the accusation, the way my parents looked at me like I was a stranger who'd stolen their life savings. I hadn't. I'd never touched that money. But they didn't believe me, and that cut deeper than anything. I was sipping coffee, staring out Sarah's window, when everything shifted back home. My older sister Emma had just gotten in from college. She walked through the door and could feel the heaviness, like the air itself was holding a grudge. "What's going on?" she asked, and when Mom and Dad told her I'd been kicked out over the missing savings book, she lost it. "You didn't even hear her out?" she snapped. They just stood there, looking guilty but saying nothing. Emma wasn't having it. She's always been the stubborn one, the fixer. She started piecing things together and remembered the security camera Dad had set up in the living room after some neighborhood break-ins. "Did you check it?" she demanded. They hadn't. Typical. So she grabbed her phone, opened the app, and dug through the footage herself. What she found stopped her cold. There, on the screen, was Mr. Jenkins, our nosy, overly chatty neighbor, sneaking in while Mom and Dad were out back. He glanced around, snatched the savings book off the coffee table, and bolted. It was over in seconds. Emma's hands shook as she watched it again, her breath hitching. She shoved the phone at our parents. "Look at this," she said, her voice trembling. "It's him, not Harper." Mom's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh no, we got it all wrong." Dad just collapsed into a chair, muttering, "How could we—" Emma didn't wait for them to process it. She texted me right away. "Harper, we found the truth. It was Mr. Jenkins. The camera caught him. We're so sorry. Come home." I was still on Sarah's couch when my phone buzzed. I read the message, then read it again, my stomach twisting. The truth was out. I wasn't the thief. Relief hit me first, but it didn't last. Anger followed, then this numb, empty feeling I couldn't shake. They'd believed I'd betrayed them, my own family, and now they wanted me back like nothing happened? I couldn't feel the joy I was supposed to. The hurt was too deep, the trust too broken. Sarah saw my face and slid over. "You okay?" she asked softly. I handed her the phone. She read it and whistled. "Damn. What now?" "I don't know," I said, voice barely there. I typed back, "Glad you know. Need time." Then I set the phone down, staring at nothing, feeling everything and nothing all at once. A week had passed since Emma's text lit up my phone, and I was still crashing at Sarah's place, trying to piece myself back together. I'd ignored their calls, not because I didn't care, but because every ring felt like a jab at a bruise that wouldn't heal. The hurt was still sharp, cutting deep whenever I thought about that night they kicked me out. But when Sarah poked her head into the living room and said, "They're here," panic and resolve hit me all at once. I couldn't run from this. I opened the door, and there they were, Mom, Dad, and Tommy, standing on Sarah's worn-out welcome mat. They looked wrecked. Mom's eyes were swollen, Dad's face was tight with guilt, and Tommy's cheeks were streaked with tears he hadn't bothered to wipe away. They were my family, the ones I'd loved my whole life. But right then, they felt like strangers who'd hurt me worse than anyone ever had. "Harper," Dad said, his voice rough and shaky, "I'm so sorry. I was wrong not to believe you." Mom stepped closer, her hands twisting together. "We were too quick to judge, sweetheart. Please forgive us." Tommy's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you, Harper." I just stood there staring at them, my chest tight. Part of me wanted to hug them, to let their words fix everything. But the other part, the one that had sobbed alone in the rain, that had learned to survive without them, wouldn't let me. I wasn't that scared, fragile girl anymore. "Do you have any idea how much it hurt?" I said, keeping my voice calm, though it trembled at the edges. "To hear you accuse me of stealing? To be thrown out like I was nothing? I've spent my whole life trying to make you proud, and you still thought I'd betray you." Dad's eyes welled up, tears spilling over. "I know, and I'll hate myself forever for it." Mom reached for me, but I stepped back. "You didn't even ask me what happened. You just decided I was guilty." "We were scared," she said softly. "The money was gone, and we didn't know what to think." "You should have known me," I shot back, my voice cracking. "I worked so hard, school, my job, everything, to be someone you could trust, and you threw it all away." Tommy looked up, his lip trembling. I didn't want to believe it, but I was too afraid to say anything. I softened a little, seeing the kid caught in the middle. "It's okay, Tommy. You're young. You didn't know better." But Dad shook his head. "No, it's not okay. We all let you down, Harper." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I hear your apologies, and I'm glad you're sorry. But I can't just walk back into that house like nothing happened. I need time. Time to figure out who I am without you." Mom's face crumpled, tears streaming down. "But we miss you so much. It's not home without you." "I miss you too," I admitted, my throat tight. "But this past week, I've realized something. I can stand on my own 2 feet. I don't need anyone to hold me up anymore." Emma, who'd been silent till now, stepped forward. "Can we try again, Harper? Take it slow?" I nodded, just a little. "Maybe one day, but not now. I need space to heal." Dad wiped his face, his voice low. "We get it. We love you, and we'll wait as long as you need." "I love you too," I said, managing a small, tired smile. "Just give me time." They hesitated, then turned to go, their footsteps heavy on the stairs. I shut the door and leaned against it, feeling the ache in my chest ease just a bit. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a step. I'd changed, grown stronger, and no one could take that from me. It's been a few months since I walked away from that doorstep, tears mixing with the rain. Life's different now, better in ways I didn't think possible back then. I landed a job at a cozy bookstore downtown. It's not some big career move, but it pays the bills, and I love the quiet hum of it, the smell of old books, the soft chatter of customers. The owner, Mrs. Green, even lets me take books home. I rented a little studio apartment upstairs, just a bed, a desk, and a corner for cooking. It's small, but it's mine, and that feels huge. I've started enjoying my own company. I cook myself dinner, nothing fancy, just pasta or stir-fry, and I've been reading more, losing myself in stories. On weekends, I take walks through the park, no rush, just me and my thoughts. Each day, I feel stronger, more like myself. I'm not just getting by, I'm building something new, My family's still in my life, sort of. We text sometimes, and Dad calls every few weeks. I can hear the guilt in his voice, and Mom's trying harder, but I'm not running back. I've set boundaries, and it's freeing. I used to think family was everything, my whole world. But I get it now. They're not the only ones who can love me. I had to learn to stand up for myself, to be my own anchor. One night, I read a post online from someone who'd been through hell like me, betrayed, alone, starting over. She wrote, "The people who hurt you most can be the ones closest to you, but you can rise above it." It hit me deep. I wasn't the only one. So I started a blog. Nothing big, just a space to spill my story. The false accusation, the night I left, how I clawed my way back. People found it. They commented, shared their own pain, stories of being doubted, abandoned. It's raw and real, and it's made me feel less alone. Here's what I've learned. Family isn't the only place love lives. It's in the strangers who get you, in the quiet nights you spend with yourself, in the strength you find when no one else believes in you. I had to love myself first, trust my own heart. The truth came late, but it made me tougher, better. Have you ever had to rebuild like this? Betrayed, alone, finding your way? Tell me about it below. I'd love to hear your story. We can learn from each other.